Hello, and welcome to another session, another conversation um, that we are now focusing on with the Black Male Impact, the Legacy Builders series. Today we have as guest Mr. Stephen Elam. But before we get into the conversation itself, I just want the listeners here to please share with your network. I can guarantee you there will be information, insights, and perspectives that you can apply to your life. My name is Richard A. Cross, Dr. Richard A. Cross, the founder of the Black Male Impact. And as I said, we have today Mr. Stephen Elam. Mr. Elam is a distinguished educator, respected educator with over 10 years of experience. He's also the founder of Distinguished Gentlemen Group, and he's a student advocate. And it's always great, to have Black men who advocate for our students. It's a great thing on so many levels. The young people need to see us. They need to see that we believe in them. And we hope to have that as part of the conversation today. But before we get into the questioning that we will be talking from, or the questions that I will be asking, um, I will just ask Mr. Elam to, share more about himself before we get into the conversation today. Mr.
Oh,
Elam.
all right. Thank you, Dr. Cross. Dr. Cross. Once again, yes, my name is Steve Elam. I am I'm 25 years into it, but I've been in leadership for the past 10, 12 years.
Okay.
In that process, I have, let me see, I started off as a substitute teacher, worked my way all the way up to chief academic officer. And in that process, I think I have learned more about my passion and my purpose to help support young Black and brown young boys, and then also help support our new young teachers who are coming into the field. I'm excited about the work that I currently do. I'm excited about this opportunity to get on here and share. The whole piece of, I know education is the tool that is going to uplift our community to help them become their best selves.
Man, it is really important. Education, can really, take you out of the situation that you were born into and change your life tremendously.
Yes.
Education is really a valuable tool, um, to change our lives. But also, as important as education is for us as Black men to be in that space to demonstrate the value of education. So, glad that you are there. And I know we spoke some time ago that, you really want to be that example for the young men because they need to see us. As important as education is, they need to see us as Black men in the space
Yes.
to demonstrate that we value education. We value what education can do for you. So for that, man, I'm just glad that you're here today to have this conversation
Thank
about
you.
legacy builders, because that is a critical part of legacy building. The value of education, because everything starts there. It doesn't matter what area you want to go into. You have to have that foundation
Yes.
of education. So I'm going to start the conversation off with this question. What does the term legacy mean to you, and how you define it in your own life?
So legacy, what it means to me is being able to leave a piece of history, a piece of a moment of something I've done or someone has done to pass on and be as a model, as in the process of being impactful. So I think for me, what I've had some great role models. You know, my dad has instilled in me the legacy of having a strong work ethic. That nothing happens by just wishing. You gotta get up and do and be in motion and be in action. And I do know that what I'm interested in doing is being that role model of having that mentality of not afraid to put on the overalls to do the work of
Right.
standing in the gap. And actually, it's not just a regular 10-hour day. Sometimes it is a 14 or even an 18-hour day when you're trying to uplift one yourself and then a community. And your family is part of that process because that's the immediate community that you have direct control over.
Well, as you stated, the extended hours that it takes to create what you want.
Yeah.
But one thing I know, when you are doing something that you are passionate about, sometimes, doing or going the extra mile, becomes not say easy, but, you find that inner drive to do it. But as you talk about legacy, it's, as you mentioned, it's leaving a piece of you, leaving a piece of you with history,
Yes.
which is really important. It's that impact that you are making with those individuals you interact with. A part of you will stay with them. Now, we have to decide what part of us we want to stay with the people we interact with. I know we spoke not before, where you went to a school and you saw a young lady that you taught when she was
Oh, okay.
in
Yeah.
school, and how she spoke about the experience. So as you mentioned, piece of, you, and that's, how you create a legacy. I believe that is important. So we have to think about what we're doing,
Yeah.
especially when we have been entrusted to serve young people.
Yeah. So and you know, I was like, right, I was telling that story to another, it was an older, it was part of, I was on the panel and I was telling the story. So what me and Dr. Cross talked about, I had experience of becoming the dean of school culture in Washington, DC. The school had been in the reconstituting stage. So they had eliminated over 50% of the staff. I had transitioned from St. Louis to St. Louis Charter School to DC Public School. I was so excited, and my close friend had given me the opportunity. And when we got there were high population of students who were receiving special education services, and my job was to lower suspension, increase attendance. So I said, okay, this is something new. And as I got into the process, what we were able to do was implement restorative practices. We created the morning meetings. We did all these things. So long story short, I transitioned out of there, but I was 2019. I was taking my niece down to Benedict College in South Carolina. And at the time, I was a high school principal. So I had on my purple, had on my gear, taking my niece. And we go into the orientation room, and a young lady screams my name from across the room. And it was my mother, my sister, and my niece were there with me. And my niece was like, "How you know somebody in South Carolina?" I said, I don't know. But what it was one of the young ladies who was in the sixth grade who had literally came there, who had made it to Benedict College. And when she came and gave me a gigantic hug, she thought I was working at the college. She was like, I'm so excited. You work here? Oh my goodness. So, we chopped it up and I was telling that. And what she explained was she appreciated that we poured into her and actually made them on a daily basis talk about their future. And
Correct.
she said, I made it, I made it. And she wanted me to let the former principal know as well. Let Mr. Simmons know I made it. But that was just a pivotal moment that I could put a stamp to that I had been impactful. I was there for 3 years, that I had been impactful on her, and that she remembered me, even, their sixth, seventh, eighth grade year, and then didn't see her through high school. But here she was becoming a college freshman and remember
Right.
the impact that I had on her. And I love telling that story.
Oh yeah, man, that's legacy.
Yeah.
That's the impact. That's a part of you that, always will continue with someone. And we always have to think about, how we're impacting the people.
Yeah.
that we encounter with today, and it's not always have to be in the classroom, just in general, because we're going to encounter people every day. But I just want to acknowledge Mr. Neil Solly. I hope I pronounced the name correct. Someone here just says, um, just to, where his legacy.
Yeah.
Eldest daughter followed my lead and graduated
Yeah.
Howard
Two
University with
degrees.
2 degrees. That is always great, especially, seeing our Black men demonstrating,
Yes.
what it takes to achieve what they are pursuing. And again, what we do and the impact we're having, we have to understand it's not always the people around us that is seeing us, although we want our families to see the great things that we're doing, but we're always being watched by
Always.
others,
Oh yeah, you never
always.
know. You never know who's paying attention to you. So now it's been making sure I give 100%, 100% of the time.
Correct, correct,
'Cause
correct.
I think
It's always, as one of my mentor, Dr. Kimbrough says, man, you're always representing yourself.
yeah,
Every environment you go to, you're always representing yourself. Despite what's happening in that environment, you are representing yourself, and it
yeah,
always, you want to be the best you, and don't dilute yourself because of what's happening around you. Always be that confident person, always
yeah.
be that leader. And when we are thinking about legacy, we always have to remember there are people watching, and what
It's
we
somebody
do.
watching,
Oh
and
yeah.
now they got a device, so they recording it too.
Oh, I tell you, they are definitely, recording and taking note of what you're doing. I have even students, that I've seen, bring clips of me sharing, but it was something positive in the
Yeah,
classroom
yeah,
that, say, sir, do you remember this? But, apparently it's so many different conversations. But as you mentioned, there are people, young people sometimes, so they're documenting what you're doing and what you're saying. So it's important. But also, as Neil says, you pour into someone that's, a
yeah.
legacy.
That's our job. We got to pour into them.
Yes, yes. So I want to go on to my next question
Okay.
to you, which is, what pivotal moments in your life shaped your mindset about building a legacy?
Oh yeah, that's a good one. So I think um, a pivotal moment that I think about this, it was when I had made the decision to I was a my dad would call it, he was a master electrician. So his thing was, if you don't have your license, then you bootleg. So I had not got my teaching certificate yet. So he would always say, he said, "Oh, you just bootleg teaching right now." So I was working at a charter school, and I was about what would it be? 15 credits away, almost a full semester away from completing and getting my certificate. So what I had made the decision to do was, it was only going to happen if my partner had got an opportunity to become a principal in St. Louis, and he said, "Listen, if you can come down to St. Louis with your teaching certificate, you can make X amount of dollars." So here it was. It was the summer, and I said, "Okay, my best bet is I gotta quit this job and go to school full time." And in that process, here in the state of Michigan, we know the weather is very treacherous during the fall. So I had made the decision was that I wanted to take this position in St. Louis, and he said he would hold it for me till January. Now, he was able to finagle some things, but what I made the decision to do was go to school full time, and that allowed me. I traveled about two hours each way, 3 days a week, going to the campus because I had already had housing in the city of Detroit, and the school was Saginaw Valley State University, which is about an hour and a half drive each way. So I committed to that. And what I did in that commitment, let me tell you what happened, Brother Cross. And this was, I knew I had to be doing something right. I still had one class that I had to complete. So the lady at the Saginaw Valley Teacher Certification Office would be able to say you certified. She saw that I had went through the whole semester, got it was like a 3.9, and I had took the 2 community college classes, but I was still one class short. Let me tell you what she did, man. I'm sitting in the office and I was like, well, could you at least extend me some more time to get it done during the month of January? Do some type of what would it be, like a external class, report back in, because I really wanted that job. And she said, nah, Mr. Elam, you actually came up here 3 days a week from Detroit. You drove 3 days a week from Detroit, and you went the other days to the community college. Here's what I'm gonna do. I can tell you a passionate educator. We just gonna waive that class, and gave me the stamp, and I was a certified Michigan secondary English teacher at the time. So that right there, that ride home, I think I cried. This is before cell phones were prominent. I pulled over, had to call my mom at the time and my dad to let them know what had happened. And then that's when I knew I was on the right track and I was going to be doing something big. And my home, what was great about this part, literally, the fall semester ends like the first week of December. I got engaged and then moved to St. Louis before Christmas break started. And when I came back, I was the reading specialist there at the charter school and started the year off and had a great year. And a year later, won Teacher of the Year. So I knew that I was on to the right track, following through on becoming a certified teacher. But that was that pivotal moment where I recognized that this was going to be my legacy of stepping into the classroom and being dynamic in everything I did. But that was, I think about that. I drove. Oh, I can remember those winters. It'd be some tough storms, and I just got to make it to class. If I can make it to class, I'll be great.
Well, well, as the teachers, mentioned, that you showed commitment.
Yeah.
You showed that you are passionate about what you want to do. And even in the process, even in doing what you have to do, so you can be in that space, someone acknowledged, your effort. And
Yeah.
sometimes that's what it takes when it comes to, starting that journey, getting the opportunity. We first have to demonstrate our commitment
Yes.
to what we say we're going to do. Because someone, again, goes back to watching and seeing what we're
Hmm.
doing, because we never know who or when the opportunity will present itself. And if we do the work, the work will help to validate
Yeah.
what we are trying to, accomplish. Because once you put in the work, there's no denial in your commitment, because people see your effort. And to be driving 2 hours, man, that's, you
Look,
know,
and I would tell you this part. I think that last 2 months, I think my license that got suspended, but I was still driving. I just I'm walking. I was stepping out on faith in that process. Let me get up there and make sure I get back safely. And my dad would tease me, like I said, I'm not bootlegging teaching no more. And he was like, okay, now you can go ahead and do what you're supposed to do. But yeah, I remember that. He's like, you just gonna be a bootleg teacher all your days? And I said, yeah, you're right. So and it was people asked me, hey man, you actually quit your job to go to school full time? It was early 20s, and I just said I saw it. I could see that if this was gonna hold me back from one making a living and following what I wanted to do, it was well worth it. It was well worth it, and I would do it again.
oh yeah, man, those, commitment is important. And it also demonstrate, to those who may have doubt of what
Yeah,
is possible, knowing that they will have to make some sacrifice, to get to where they want to be. And it doesn't
yeah,
have to be in the classroom, but it really take that commitment, that sacrifice, knowing that this is what I want to do, so I'm going to do what it takes,
yeah.
to achieve it. So but my next question, and this is, heavily on what we do as Black men. How can Black men shift from a survival mindset to a legacy building mindset?
Now, as I was reading the questions you sent me, that's a good question in the sense of the shift has to happen inside first.
Correct.
Recognizing that we are unique as that fingerprint. All of us have all the different fingerprints in that process. And what I was explaining in my mind, thinking it this way. So if God woke me up this morning, he woke me up to be successful, not to be in a survival mode, but to be in a thriving mode because he's already woke me up. Somebody had plans to do X, Y, and Z today. Guess what? They didn't get up.
That's
And
right.
that's why you got to live for today. That's why it's called a present. It is the present. You only get those 1,440 minutes each day, and it is what we choose to do with them. So the shift has to happen inside, and it does take that. It takes that reflection to say, okay, yesterday's behind me, you because you can't go back. But what
Correct.
you can do is control what you have in front of you right now today, and what are you going to do with it? And the survival piece is so easy to, especially nowadays. We can look at where our ancestors have come from and where we're at right now, and do we choose to utilize their struggles, their opportunities that they didn't have, do we seize them and then build upon that so that the person coming behind me can stand on my shoulders? So I think the survival piece, I remember, I would say, I remember being in that mind state. It was just when I realized I can only control what I can control. So I got to give that 100% today. And in that process, it's a daily thing. But you got to get around people who are also like minded, who are going to push you even harder. And
Right.
sometimes I do know our circle of friends, they might just necessarily be your friends for a season.
Correct.
Maybe you're supposed to learn something from them and grow from that. But as you move on, it is he woke you up. I'm gonna just go. I'm gonna be real spiritual with it. He woke you up so that you are a winner, and in that process, we all are unique in solving whatever. It could be a problem. It could be solving an issue. It could be inventing something. Everything started off as a thought. Us being on this platform, somewhere somebody thought about how to design this, and they had it in their imagination, but they took the time to take the action steps to implement it. And now look at me and you are communicating two different time zones. We sharing it with the world, and you're being the model of what collaboration should look like for more black men and black women. So I think the survival mode just not gonna get it no more. You know, you
But
surviving it's a mind state. He
yeah.
woke you up. You to survive. You survive tonight. Let's get to it.
Well, as you when you start off the conversation about internal,
Yes.
we have to start with us. Because we can have all the tools, right? All the things that to make a shift, make change happen. But if we don't change inside, if we don't change our mindset, if we don't change, what we do, we can have the information, but if we don't change internally, have that shift internally, it's gonna hard to, create
Yeah. Oh
the
yeah, and
things
it's
that
not gonna
we
be
want.
easy. Yeah.
And I just want to. I'm still going to get back to your point, but I just want to acknowledge shift. Our mindset grow, grow and build. But America has been
A big
distraction.
distraction. That's it. It's a
We
design.
have to. That's right. We have to pay attention to the things that's going to uplift us. We cannot afford to be distracted. But everything starts within. We cannot allow the same things to continue if we're going to see change.
Yeah.
We have information, but our behaviors have to change. Our thought process have to change. Um, as whilst I was in the gym yesterday, right, the thought came to me about, sometimes we are focusing a lot on, the system itself, but we have to look at our approach to what's happening, because
Hmm.
that's what we can control. We
That's it.
cannot control the system itself, but we can control how we show up. That's changing our approach to what's happening, because if I'm going to focus on what's not working around me, that's not doing much for me. I'm keeping myself within what's already happening.
Right.
So for me to change it, I have to have that paradigm shift. I have to have that shift internally, as you mentioned, to start the process of changing what's external. Because if I don't change, even if things are changing around me, I still don't change.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have to
And you become
change.
stuck.
Correct. So, but as also as you mentioned, man, we get up each day, so we have to, utilize the time the best way possible and focus less on the distraction. I believe, man, if we're going to change, we have to realize what's keeping us from moving forward,
Yeah.
and do the opposite, and learn from those who came before us, what they didn't do and what we need to do to move forward. But as it comes to legacy mindset and moving from survival, as you mentioned, collaboration is going to be key.
It That's the
We
only
have
way.
to we have to learn the value of unity. We have to learn the value of collaborating with each other, not always in this competing mindset.
Yeah.
Because I can, and we're not going to work with everybody, as you mentioned, either. As you mentioned, some people are here on your journey for maybe this moment, but we have to learn to work with each other. It's not just about survival. But I want to my next question to you. As we're talking about collaboration, as we're talking about working with each other, what barriers do you think Black men face when it comes to creating generational wealth and stability?
Well, now I'm gonna say the barrier is the self talk. The biggest barrier that I see, even though there are systems in place that will keep you encapsulated in poverty mindset, it's still going to boil back down to the process of do what do I want as a person, and what can I do? So you can only control what you have in front of you. But if now, as we look at, and I don't want to jump around too much, but as we look at, I can think about all the different tools. Like I said, I use my dad for example. As he was coming up, he grew up without a father, and in that process, he made a conscious decision. Even though him and my mom got divorced, he still wanted to make sure he was involved in my life and instilled in me a work ethic. And then in that process, what he was doing was to better himself. He went on, became a master electrician as he got the opportunity, because everybody wasn't afforded the opportunity to get into trade skills when at the plant at that level. So then he began to push and say, "Hey, come on, go with me on these jobs." So I thought at one time I wanted to be an electrician, and I still can do those kind of things. But in that process, the legacy piece happens. He was showing me that the only person who's going to remove those barriers are going to be me, and how I think about how I talk to myself, how I treat myself, and learning the literacy, that financial literacy piece is going to be what allows a person to elevate. So saving your money, not living beyond your means, and stop chasing just for the Friday night party, but more so thinking about the vacation that you want to take, or the classes that you want to be able to afford to go to school, to provide for your children, to provide for your children's children. So you have to have that kind of mentality. But I would say that the barriers are going to be there, but now they're at that it's the mental chain that is there. But we have so many opportunities to share advice, um, work with one another. The biggest thing that I like I said, that work ethic. Nobody's going to give you anything for free. And what
Correct.
makes it hard is now everything that we see on social media happens to be in a 30-second clip. But people don't recognize that it took somebody maybe hours to even make that one 30-second clip that gets them the million views. Or what does it look like? They have to spend hours looking through their video footage. I was a communication major, and what I learned early was they said if it's on TV, it's on script prior to. So
Correct.
know that somebody spent some time, and that became part of why we call TV programs program. There's a program. The good times mentality. That was a program. The Jeffersons mentality was a program. Sanford and Son was a program. But everything else, you went from the Waltons to you had the Love. You had all these different sitcoms that were on place that showed white people in different educational brackets and economical brackets. And then when I saw Bill Cosby come along, I'm just jumping a little bit, but then you see Bill Cosby come along, and there's the Cosby Show, A Different World, and all the different spinoffs from that to help change the narrative. But it always Bill Cosby was talking about education years before he even got on. He was on TV, but once he got his own opportunity, he did that. So we have to do the same thing. The barriers are up here. I don't want to say people don't have excuses. You're setting your limitations. And if you allow those limitations to keep you encapsulated, then you're stuck.
Well, yes, if we think about the things that we cannot do, we will not do the things that we are capable of doing. So, yes, we have to get it in our mind that it is possible. But as you talk about, when it comes to generational wealth, it's not just the money we get or we earn.
Mm-hmm.
It's what we save, it's what we budget. And in creating wealth, we cannot um, spend beyond our means if we're going to create wealth. And as I shared with someone some time ago, and one of the conversation we're having, where I read this story of this man. He was working as a stop sign person at just helping people cross the street.
Yeah, the crossing guard.
Yeah, crossing guard. And he didn't get, he wasn't the best paid person, but he saved the money. And I think when he went to the bank, because one day he went to deposit his check, and the lady said, "Man, do you know how much you got in the bank?" And he said, "Nope." And he
You just
had,
putting it in.
oh yeah, man, he had, I don't remember the exact number, but he had, I think, like $250,000. And
Yeah.
he couldn't believe that he had that much in his account. To go back to what you shared, when it comes to, creating wealth, it's not so much of how much we earn, is how best we manage what we earn. Because we have
Yes.
seen a lot of athletes, especially, have earned millions but lose it of mismanagement. And again, it's because we haven't been taught that financial literacy. We haven't been taught how to create wealth, how to maximize what we have, how to invest in the different opportunities. And the
Yes.
exposure to different things, as you mentioned about Bill Cosby. I think his show really give us as Black people a different perspective of self, of what's possible. Because if we have been shown a lot of negative or stereotypes when it comes to us, that's what we're going to do, because we're going to do more of what we see.
Yes. Yes.
It's easy
Yes.
because we're influenced by the things that we see each day. And
Yes.
the more we see positive examples, from how we use our money, how we invest. And now the conversation is changing a bit, to be honest with you, because when you look on social media, you find a lot more Black males and Black women who are demonstrating what it takes to invest, and then they are showing their growth in financial literacy. But when it comes to generational wealth, we have to manage our money. We have to pass that knowledge on to the next generation. So it's
Yes.
what we learn late, we have to share with the next generation early, so they don't
Yes.
make the same mistakes that we make. But I want to ask this question, because you mentioned when you were about to start, someone saw in you the ability, and they said, "Man, if you can get your teacher certification, you can get this." So my question to you: How has mentorship played a role in your journey, and why it is important for building a strong legacy?
Um, Definitely, it's been a key linchpin in my success in moving forward. So the gentleman who offered me the opportunity, his name is Kwame Simmons, and what he was doing was showing me the process of, because he was a little bit younger than me well, not at the time, but he still is a little bit younger than me. But he had took on that principal position and moved to St. Louis, relocating, and he saw in me the skills that I had when we were working together, and it was, hey, if you do this, you can do this. And prior to that, I had, my dad, besides being a father figure, was an awesome mentor. And then is Dr. Anthony Shipley, who had actually helped me get into Adrian College and created an Inspires program, but then started the charter school in the state of Michigan. He's one of the first charter school holders in the state of Michigan. He created a school. So I was able to see black men, from my father to Dr. Shipley and all of these individuals who was counterproductive of the narrative of what black people can't do. I was able to see, it's doable, but in this aspect, it is everybody, the mentor stage is for different aspects of life as you continue up the chain. So I would say it's been very crucial for me to ask those key questions. Like with Dr. Shipley, I would ask the questions of, the purpose of the school board, or how did you get the funding to even send 164 kids off to a private college? How did you secure that funding? And what he told me at the time, he was a Methodist pastor. He said he learned early in life that people want to participate and help support. Now you got to put money behind it. And the money came through. He said he would go through, it wasn't just passing the plate at church, but then he used the Methodist infrastructure to locate individuals who have money set aside that they want to see urban youth go off to school. And here, Adrian College was a Methodist school. Oh, plug it right in. So in that aspect, the mentoring piece, so I worked with him. Oh my goodness, Dr. Shipley, I would go to his house. And what I saw also was my dad was a blue collar worker. And then I saw with Dr. Shipley and his family was the almost like the Cosby style. So in that aspect, they lived over in a prominent area of the city of Detroit. He drove, and what he also taught me was this: you never buy used tires. He was like, you never trust your life on some used tires. Always get new stuff. But he always drove a used vehicle. He said, why would I? These are small things that I learned, and in that process, the mentoring piece allowed me to ask questions that I wasn't necessarily comfortable about asking my dad, but I could ask him. And then when I got into the educational space, it was, how do I continue this by asking other African American men and women who have risen up the ladder, who are still in the classroom? How do I ask them and listen? I've learned that. I've said when me and my wife moved back home to the city of Detroit, when I became a principal, I immediately joined the Bible study group, which was the Black Men's Bible Study Group. What I recognized was that these were older Black men who had survived way more than what I could even imagine, and they were still steadfast on following their faith. So I needed to be around those kind of people because that's what I saw. And I knew that the work was going to be hard, the struggle was going to be real. And in that process, I need to be around somebody else who has survived it. So mentoring plays a big role in achieving your dreams because somebody has gone up to where you want to be, or even as you esteem to get higher. Link up with somebody who's done it so that they can help you avoid some of the pitfalls or give you some guidance on things that they wish they would have been able to do when they were in the seat. I appreciate that process. And I love the fact that now what I love doing is working with young teachers because I want to help them free up their Sundays. Don't wait till Sunday to do the lesson plan. You doing the lesson plan throughout the week so that you can spend time with your family. We know now we're in that space of work-life balance. But in the process, mentoring has been crucial for my success. And I realized, like I said, I came from the mentality, I know this person has survived way more than what I can imagine. And let me find out how they were able to do it. Let me listen to them. And I call them sometimes my aunties and uncles in the aspect of that success is for me that they're able to get up and be sustainable and whether it's retirement from their job or they're still working or whatever they're doing, that they have the mentality that I want to help carry on, which is be about your business, be about your father's business. of solving that problem that he put us on the planet to solve.
As you mentioned, when it comes to mentorship, is to be available, to those who have walked before us,
Yeah,
and be open to learning, from those individuals. Because why try to make the mistakes that we don't have to make if we can learn from someone who have overcome
yeah,
those mistakes? So we have to make ourselves available and be willing to listen, as you mentioned, because if they're going to share with us what they have gone through, why not listen? Especially if we want to be better. And
yeah,
there are people, even if, and it's not even about their education level. At times, it's about their experience.
yeah,
Education plays a role, of course, but sometimes it's their experience that can help us to prevent going through some things that may not be best for us.
yeah.
So we have to be open. But I still want to acknowledge, a few comments here. But as you mentioned, man, we have to be available and learn from those who see the best in us and want us to be better, and be willing to challenge ourselves, through those individuals who have walked before us. Just to acknowledge the comment here. I don't remember the point that you have made earlier, but I still want to acknowledge these
Oh yeah,
two
no,
here.
he's right. Yeah,
Yeah,
you got to think it and then act upon it.
that's right.
Yeah,
And also, depending on the lens, we can influence our decision making. Mentorship is key to sharing knowledge and lived experience.
yeah,
That goes back to what we are saying. There are individuals who came before us who understand some of the challenges that we are experiencing, and to help us to navigate the landscape is to share their experience and say, this is how I
yeah,
did it, and maybe it didn't work. So this is how you can do it to make sure you get the most out of it.
yeah,
And mentorship, as you mentioned, when the principal is younger than you, but saw in you, what you are capable of, and create that opportunity. So when it comes to mentorship, it doesn't have to be someone who is older.
yes,
It can be someone who is much younger when it comes to mentorship. So we have to, be open and available for mentorship. So my next question to you is, what advice would you give to young black men about preparing for long-term success?
oh, not. I'm ready for this one. Step one: the vision that God gave you, write it down. Take the time, get centered, write it down, because what He's showing you is the end product. And as you write it down and as you develop your plan, that is when He can bless the plan. Because He's not gonna plan for us. He's gonna show us the end product. And as black men, sometimes, like I said, put the phone down, turn off the TV, get centered, write down your plan, set the goals, figure out, okay, what steps need to happen for this to come into place. Because if He gave it to you, guess what He's also going to do? He's going to provide the resources for you. And sometimes what I have recognized, I would say, in my short 51 years on the planet, I find myself trying to figure out how to get the money, how to do this. That's not what He said do. He said write it down, make it plain, so that as you move forward, that's His job to provide the resources. So black men, young black men, write it down. Now, it is going to require some action on your part, which is being diligent and that discipline that we just talked about, which was the story how you said the crossing guard was putting that money into the bank. That took discipline. That took
Hmm.
living within his means. These are things that you're going to have to do so that you can achieve those things. And God will continue to bless you along like process. But I would say start with writing down your plan, making it plain. I carry an index card with me. And on my index card, I got my three major goals that I want to achieve. which is complete my doctorate, write a book, and then also be a obedient giver. An obedient giver is just not of money, but of time and of wisdom and sharing. So participate in that process, and I look at it to remind me on a daily basis. Like I said, he woke me up, so I won. So let me make sure these 1440 are going to be productive today. And what does it look like? And know that he's only going to give you what you can handle, but recognize and put it all in his hands and surrender it to him. And get you some mentors. Get around some people who are about doing the right things. We were already talking about the thing of they'll be what they'll see. So if you're constantly seeing negative, then you end up with that kind of mentality. I think I was telling my one partner, I used to play video games a lot, even while I was teaching. In that process, it was the game Grand Theft Auto. Nowadays, a lot of people actually look like CJ. CJ is the character inside the game that runs around, running from the cops, selling drugs, doing all the different crimes. And now, actually, when you go into some schools, sometimes if it's not a uniform school, everybody looks the same. Nobody's even showing their uniqueness and standing out. And in that process, you got to get around folks who are challenging you, who are going to help you push to your goal and vision, who are going to allow you to make mistakes that are not going to hinder you. Because sometimes some of the mistakes, all it takes is the one time for you to do something that could take someone's life or in your own in that process. So you got to get around some people, but write that vision down, write it down, focus on it, uh, reach out. And now we got these tools. Like I said, we're using the internet. We got the tools that attach you to everything that is positive. You have a great platform with doing this process. See, you're creating a better narrative. So now that as we got brother Neil on here who's watching and some other folks who are watching, we are responsible for changing the narrative. You
Correct.
know, I think a lot of times you got folks who say, well, negative stuff sells. This is not about selling. See, we about sharing an opportunity to help collaborate. That's what we have to do. The other nationalities do it, and they not necessarily doing it on social media, which they still do, but they get together on Saturdays and on Tuesdays and on Wednesdays, and they're collaborating. The money circulates 20 days in the Jewish community, 30 in the Asian, 6 hours. So people got paid last night, and before they woke up this morning, it's gone to another community. So we got to start working on those things, and the only way it's going to happen, write down our vision and plan and work together.
Well, when I was in college, I remember one professor. I don't remember which professor said it. He said, "The palest ink is sharper than the best memory." And because we were in class, and sometimes we were saying, "Man, I'll remember,"
Oh
and
yeah,
I will remember. Yes, it's gonna be on the test. I will remember. And from that moment, man, when you look in some of my notebook whilst I was in college, it's like I wrote down almost everything after that statement, where the professor said the palest ink is sharper than the best memory. So it's important, that we write things down as you mentioned, because if we're going to achieve the thing that we want, we need to know we're not going to remember everything. And when we have it in, especially in front of us,
mm-hmm.
we're more likely, to take action on it. But it's not only to write it down, as you mentioned. We have to develop a plan of action and start taking action. Be willing, if we're going to create success, we have to take action towards what we want to accomplish. That's just what it's about. It's not just writing things down. And as you mentioned, get some mentors. Get in, be around people who can help us to break the cycle,
Yeah,
break the barriers, and see what's possible. Because there are people out there who have gone through, have achieved what they want. And achieving the goal, sometimes you need to know what to do and what not to do
yeah,
when it comes to achieving your goal or creating long-term success. But long-term success requires writing your vision down, Without knowing what you want, you may not end up getting there. I think it was, he passed away now. Mr. Len Aplin once told me, man, if you don't know where you're going, you'll end up there. You need to know where you're going. And that's why writing down,
You're
oh,
right.
yeah, writing down your vision is important. And I think, that's something that we have to, get in mind. And I just want, let me, and I have a few more questions that I want to ask,
Okay.
as I was coming. I want to make sure I get in as many questions as possible. So how do you, I will not ask that question. In what ways do you believe Black men can take ownership of their narratives to reshape how society view them? How can we as Black men take ownership of our narrative to change how society view us?
Start at home. Start at home first. Start with yourself. Start at home with your wife, your children, your family members. Um, and actually, what I paid attention to, and I want to use this piece. We actually use our social media feed so many times to capture things, and that is helping to capture. Now you can be doing it for the positive, or you can be doing it for the negative, or you can just, hey, I'm doing. I thought this was just silly, but utilizing that particular platform to capture what you want your legacy to be, as far as sharing your narrative. Because what I paid attention to a lot of times, I've seen some younger people. I've gone to some funerals recently, and what they do is they just tap into their Facebook page or their Instagram account. You see all the pictures and the different things that they've accomplished. Those are things that now we capture digitally, but it always starts. I'm gonna just go back to what I know my grandmother and my grandfather taught me. Start at home. If you're going to be loved and respected, you got to love and respect yourself, and then start with for me and my wife. And then I participate in church. Yes, I believe in God, but the process is that's an organization. And within the organization, you have other people who are building and standing upon their families' legacies, who also are interested and believe in the faith. And in that process, what you'll do is you can start to see yourself in the work. Like, I was, go church, you got to be in the army of the Lord, and you the arm and you the foot. We all are part of this process. And that's where I saw collaboration happening the most. But it starts at home, and that you can that's the first place where you got to lead from. And then as you step out into society, then what happens is, your home is solid, what you have, your faith in the Lord is solid, and then as you step into the world, you ready. Because the challenge becomes, he doesn't want us to uplift his name. Well, talking about the devil. The devil doesn't want us to uplift God's name, but in this process, that's that role model. See, you'll be what it goes back to. You'll be what you'll see. And when I step into schools, and especially I remember as the chief academic officer, as I step into those spaces, I have to represent my my grandmother, my grandfather, my father, my mother, all of the people who have poured into me. I want to represent and be the best Elam that I could be, so that they can recognize that they can do the same. I don't know who I might touch today, but I'm trusting, and I would say these prayers, I'm trusting that when I do come across their path, that I can empower and impact them to move forward in a better way. And sometimes that might be correction, whether it's correction to an adult and helping them develop their skill set. But I do know it start at home, and that you transition out into the world is being that role model that you needed when you were growing up. You got to be that. Ain't nobody coming to save us. There's nobody coming to, let me give you the secret key. We already got it in us. So we got to tap into that and walk in faith. I think K. Price, I remember before going to church, he was out there in LA. It was walk by faith, not by sight. Because if you walk by sight, we would think, right now we in a troubling times. It's been troubling times as long as our ancestors can remember. But they kept pushing and they kept striving. I think about folks who had, like I said, I had an opportunity, Dr. Cross, to present at the ASCD conference in Ghana. I saw people with what I've learned to call abstract poverty, had absolutely nothing, but they were so impactful about education. They had schools inside their homes where other individuals were entrusting to send their children to their homes to go to school, and these kids were knocking it out the park. So as that is that piece I was telling you before. When I came back from that trip, I was just so inspired that I know I could be doing more, and I want to do more. And that is that piece of I know I'm here to help solve something. So let me get busy. And part of my vision is helping, like I said, mentoring, helping young teachers understand how to become their best self. It's okay to be authentic and make mistakes in front of kids. Everything is not going to be perfect. You're a human being.
Well, yeah, but as you mentioned, that when it comes to the change or the impact that we want, it starts with us.
Yeah.
Um, we have to realize how important that is. That despite what's going on, we have to focus on what we can do. And if we focus on being the best that we can be, and remember that we're representing those who have come before us, and we are the legacy of our family. So we must decide that I'm going to represent my family, my community in the best way possible. And that's where the self comes in. And because whatever is happening outside, right? We may not be able to control that which is happening outside of us, around us. But if we decide to show up in a different way, we now may influence those who are
Mhm.
seeing us. That's how we have to start with self. We have to start at home. We have to start doing the best that we can. And remember, we are representing ourselves every time.
Every time.
Especially when we're talking about legacy, we're talking about impact. We're talking about changing the narrative, because to change the narrative is we have to make sure that we realize how personal that is. No one is going to change the narrative for us. No one is going to really paint a positive image for us. There are individuals out there who are helping to change how we have been perceived in society, but we are counteracting our we have the internet that's constantly having negative things about us. So we have to realize that we have to be intentional, and this is something personal that we have to do to move us forward, to change how we are perceived, not just by us, but all those who are seeing
Yeah.
us. And if
Yeah.
we're not intentional about it, it's going to continue, because we are competing
Oh
with
my goodness. It's
the
a machine.
oh
This
yeah.
has been going on for well over 400 years. So yeah.
Oh, it is. We have these, labels and negative stereotypes that attach to us, and if it's going to change, we have to be intentional and make it a personal thing, to change the narrative. And we're getting close to the top of the hour, but I just want to, remind um, individuals of this, which Neil acknowledged here: the palest ink is better than the sharpest memory. So we have to write things down that we want to accomplish, because we can think about it, and we can believe we're going to remember it. But it's important that we write it down, especially if we want to, accomplish whatever goal we have. And if we want things to change, we have to know what we are working towards
Right.
accomplishing. But before we leave today, and I tell you, the hour went by so fast, I can't believe it's already a top of the hour. But I want to ask this question, before we close for today. How can Black men leverage collaboration and networking to build stronger and more impactful legacy? Being that collaboration has been, most of our conversation today. But how can we leverage this collaboration and networking to build stronger and more impactful legacy?
So I'm gonna say it is our duty to participate at every level. For instance, highlighting what you're doing, that is instrumental in influencing other young black and brown brothers and sisters to reach out and highlight someone who maybe would not have their own platform. So something that you're doing is crucial. Participating at the school level. I've learned this over the years. Most of the times, what individuals don't recognize is the principal, the school board need the community to step in and help and support, whether it be through volunteer with reading, volunteer with math, volunteer with those different things, but definitely stepping in and offering, hey, can I come and read on Fridays? Because the teachers, what is happening, and this is going on across the country, teachers are burned out. They're at the wits' end trying to meet a standardized test. And the community in which the school sits has thriving and entrepreneurial and also successful adults. Step on in, black men. Step in. Go to the principal. Set up a meeting. Set up those black mentoring groups inside the school where you can 3 through 8 boys and girls. Set it up. You just want to hold conversations with people. Go to the church. The church is always offering tutoring opportunities. Participate in that. The more we participate and they see us participating, whether it's at the food pantry, volunteer for that. We got to participate more because the more they see us, because who's at those particular places? So the one thing we didn't talk about is with black men being in the classrooms, it's almost less than 1% leaving the classroom. Now we're in the administration, we're in the principalship, we're in the superintendent seat, we're there. But what they don't see is the classroom with 25 students and 18 of them being boys, and then you have the predominantly 80% white female being in that space. What does that look like? So we can help counter that by showing up to do speaker series, doing the career day. Show up so that the kids can see you in different light versus because they maybe don't watch the news, but what they do get is what happens that comes across their screen on the internet. And most schools are very hybrid or remote style learning in that process. So the kids got access to the computer even more. We have to be and participate at really at 150% level. Tap in principals. Tap into your parents. Many of your parents want to participate. Have you asked them? Have you created that culture where that is happening? And that's what my particular consultant group is doing now. We're helping to facilitate those conversations with parents and get the community into the school because that's the only way children to be able to see what they also can become.
Man, that's important. We have to participate. But as you mentioned in the beginning of what you're sharing about collaboration and building a more impactful legacy, is that we support each other. We
Yeah.
realize what others are doing that's making a difference and play a part in it. Because if we don't, some of the things that is possible will not happen.
That's right.
And I strongly believe that the next generation should not have all the things that we are dealing with today to deal with in their time.
Yeah.
Even if they have things that they have to solve, we should solve some of the problems, some of the challenges that will affect them in our generation so they don't have to deal with the same things ongoing. Because if we don't, you know, and this is happening through collaboration where we support each other and
Yes.
work together to make a difference. Because again, we're not here forever, so but we have to make sure what we're doing that make will make a difference for them so they can have things not say easier but have different things to focus on as
Yeah.
they go forward.
Making the future better.
Correct. And just want to acknowledge these two quotes here.
You're
uh,
right. We must
yeah,
care.
we must care for each other. And as you mentioned about the education piece in the education system, we have to be part of the curriculum development because we understand, and especially if you're in education, but it's almost in everything. Our voice is important at the table because we understand our experience, we
Mhm.
understand our challenges, and being that we understand, and this is from a cultural responsive perspective, we have to, our voices are important, our perspective, insight, and insights are important because who understand our experience better than us?
That's right.
Uh, so it's important that we participate in the process of developing whatever is going to be beneficial to us. Um, but Mr. Elam, I tell you, the time have
Flies back.
gone by so fast. And as we continue on this journey to have black male sharing their perspective and their insight, this will be an ongoing conversation each month. Although each month we have different series, different focus, and so I will be sharing what the focus will be later on today for next month. But I want to thank you for being here, and not just only being here. I want to thank you for your continuous support. With what I'm doing with the Black Male Impact. So thanks again for being here, and thanks for sharing your insights and perspective as we continue on this journey.
No, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
I appreciate it. And for the listeners who are here, thank you for continuous support. The Black Male Impact is where positive changes are inspired. So we're looking forward to sharing with you with our next guest. So as we continue on this journey, please continue to support us as we continue to make a positive impact.
All
And
right.
just before we go, I just want, I really want to acknowledge this, Paul, because this is important that we do. Sometimes we have to build new tables. We have to build our tables. We have to create the platforms. We have
Mhm.
to, create the spaces. So those who have the experience and have the knowledge and have the solutions, have somewhere to share it. Because again, none of us knows everything. And we never know who will
That's right.
be able to provide the solution we need. So it's important that we create platforms so individuals can share their perspective and their insight so we can be better as we go forward because we are better together. We
Yes.
can achieve more when we work together. Again, thanks for those who are here with us as we continue on this journey to make a positive impact.